How does IHL protect civilians from starvation in conflict? Imagine a war zone where food supplies suddenly vanish. Civilians are left hungry and vulnerable. International humanitarian law steps in to prevent this nightmare from becoming reality. This body of law, often called the laws of war, sets strict rules to protect civilians during armed conflicts. One of its key rules is that starvation cannot be used as a weapon. Warring parties are not allowed to intentionally cut off food or water supplies to force surrender or gain an advantage. The Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols are the main treaties that establish these protections. They specifically say that attacking or destroying objects essential for civilian survival, like food stores, farms, or water installations, is forbidden. This means that military actions must not target food sources or infrastructure that civilians depend on for their survival. The law makes a clear distinction between civilians and combatants. While soldiers may sometimes be targeted, civilians must be protected from acts that cause them to go hungry. The principle of distinction requires parties to always tell civilians apart from military targets. This helps ensure civilians are not deliberately harmed or starved. Intent is a big part of the law. It is illegal to deliberately cause civilians to starve. For example, if a siege is used to cut off food to a city with the goal of forcing surrender, it is considered a war crime. But if civilians suffer hunger as an unintended side effect of attacking a military target, the situation is more complicated. Most legal experts agree that only intentional acts of starvation are prohibited. International law also requires parties to allow aid to reach civilians in need. This includes food and medical supplies, especially for vulnerable groups like children, pregnant women, and those in maternity care. Even in besieged areas, parties must not block humanitarian aid. They have a duty to let relief supplies pass freely to help civilians survive. Customary international law, which is made up of rules accepted by most countries, also bans starving civilians. This means that even if a country has not signed specific treaties, it still must follow these rules. The Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court takes this further by classifying the intentional starvation of civilians as a war crime. Since 2019, this has been extended to non-international conflicts for countries that accept the rules. To be guilty of this war crime, a person must intentionally deprive civilians of food or water to use starvation as a weapon. In practice, enforcing these rules can be tough. War often disrupts food systems, making civilians vulnerable to hunger even without deliberate acts. But the law is clear. Using starvation as a method of warfare is illegal. Those who violate this rule can face prosecution and punishment. In summary, international humanitarian law protects civilians from starvation by banning the deliberate destruction of food sources, requiring the free passage of aid, and making starvation a war crime. These rules aim to shield innocent people from the worst effects of war and uphold basic human dignity.